I'll go ahead. My name is Dr. Daniel Shin. I'm a urologic surgeon, previously from Southern California, recently moved to Tennessee, and I am a surgeon, investor, and blogger at the Darwinian Doctor, where I record my adventures in personal finance and real estate investing. I've got about 26 units of active real estate that I manage myself, and I'm very honored to be joined today by Harry Nima Zegarra, MD. So he is a co-founder and manager of Nima Equity. And Harry is a pulmonary and critical care medicine physician, real estate investor, and entrepreneur. He is a co-founder and manager of Nima Equity, as I said, which is a commercial real estate syndication company. He helps physicians to earn passive income, lower taxes, and achieve financial freedom, which is a topic near and dear to my heart. So Harry has experience in rental properties and currently owns and manages 9 properties across the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. He's also a general partner in 1,076 units in 4 different states. So Harry, very happy to have you with us tonight.
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much. Very happy to hear, very excited about tonight.
All right, so if you wanted to go ahead and share your presentation, I think we can go get started with that.
Okay, let me see.
And again, to our audience here, I'm pinch hitting for Jordan Fry. We are partners in the Physician Real Estate Investing Network. And if you have questions, we'll have some time for question and answer at the end. Please go ahead and type it in the chat, and we'll just take them as they come at the end of the presentation, okay? All right, take it away, Harry.
All right, let's do it. So hello, everyone. Thanks so much for being here tonight. As Daniel mentioned, I'm a full-time pulmonary and critical care doctor working in the downtown Dallas area. So let's get started with this. So a little bit about us, about my wife and I and our family. We were born and raised in Lima, Peru, which is like Lima is the capital of Peru, where probably right now over 8-9 million people living in there. And many of you probably know Peru for Machu Picchu, but to be honest with you, like it's a little bit more than that. Have like a great culture and great geographic areas. So like the picture here is from Lima. We have highlands, we have rainforests. So everyone who is interested in doing tourism, more than welcome to visit us. And like this is a picture. My wife and I, we actually know each other for a little bit over 25 years now. We went to medical school together back in Lima, Peru, and we have been married for 15 years. These are our kids. We have 2 boys, Leo and Lucas. One is 11 years old, one is 7 years old. Actually, this picture was taken this last weekend. We were celebrating like Leo's 11th birthday. And just a background for Mitzi and I. So Mitzi is a family medicine doctor. She did her residency here in the US. And after that, she has been working as a family medicine doctor. I'm also a pulmonary critical care physician, already finished fellowship in Virginia. Initially was in private practice. And the last 5 years have been like in academic medicine, Baylor in Dallas downtown. And we have been very grateful and blessed to be in real estate for 5 years already since we came to Dallas. Initially in residential real estate. That's the way we started actually, and that's where we're very grateful how we started. And the main reason is because like residential real estate is like the bread and butter of real estate in the US, right? Like, and there's so many ways to invest in real estate, of course, like from fix and flips to long-term rentals to short-term rentals. But real estate is actually more than that, including commercial real estate, commercial and residential, commercial and malls and things like that. Also storage and mobile homes, right? So moving on, real estate investing goals. Right, like so active versus passive real estate investing. This is the first topic that I want to touch because as I mentioned here, we're all not the same, right? Like, and we are not we are usually in different stages in our lives, and also have different goals in terms of personal and professional aspirations, right? It's not the same when you just finish the residency or fellowship in your early 30s, and maybe you have more energy, or maybe you can take a little bit more risk, or you don't have kids, maybe still on that moment, to when you have been like in your practice or in your career for 10 years, like myself, for example, right now, right? Or when you are at the end of your career, maybe in your 50s or 60s, where you maybe want to focus on other things, right? The next is risk tolerance, right? And this is again like this difference with all of us, right? Like, and there's an example that I always make, like with different people, about how to buy a home, right? Like how to buy a single family house, right? And there's the spectrum from buying all cash, right? Like to buy with a 15-year mortgage, to buying with a 30-year mortgage, to buy with a 5 or 7 arm mortgage, right? Like, and to be honest with you guys, there's no right or wrong answer, right? Like it's different for all of us, right? The next point is what's our plans? What's our goal for investing? Are we just investing for cash flow? Are we investing for appreciation? Are we investing for a mix of both? Right? Like it's not the same to buy a single family rental, for example, or real estate in states like California or New York, than buying real estate in the Midwest, for example, right? Like in Kansas City, or in Tennessee, and in Oklahoma, right? Like, so it's very different, right? Like, so for example, again, like in areas like California, we may not be able like to get cash flow at the beginning, but the appreciation is there, right? Like the appreciation has been very important in these areas, and they have outpaced inflation by a long way. However, like we always want to have a good like balance on that. Then like the next one is probably like the most important point for me, right? Like we're talking about returns versus the time invested, right? Like, so when I talk with people, and actually like in the last 2 years, I have talked with several physicians and people who are interested in investing in real estate, and they usually ask me, hey, but what's the best way to invest, or where can I get like the best return on investment? And I'm honest with them, and I tell them, like, again, like usually, or most of the time, being an active real estate investor is going to get you a better return on or on investment. However, at the same time, you're putting your time, you're putting your effort, right? Like, and the risk is only yours, right? Like, so it's also like about like the time that you invest in doing this, right? Like, is it worth it? How much of your time are you willing to invest in these investments? And finally, as you guys know, like you guys heard already, we have been investing actively and also lately passively. We have been investing in residential real estate, long-term rentals, but also now in syndications and apartment complex syndications, right? And I still actually keep my single family houses, and we're still managing them with a great property manager that actually he's a good friend of mine. However, I mean, like we are always on the phone. We need to take decisions about like multiple things, and even like day-to-day decisions, right? Like, so when we're talking about active investing, like the decisions, the responsibilities and liabilities are on you, right? Which again, like it may be okay. Like again, like in my case, in Jordan's case, in Daniel's case, like it's fine, and we enjoy that, and like, and we know what we're doing, and we have had like education about that. But there may be other people who doesn't want to do that, right? Like who don't want to do that. So that's important to have first like figure it out, like before you want to invest in real estate. Yeah, and please, Daniel, please stop me if I have any questions, or anyone is asking any questions in the chat, so I can address that. Or if you prefer, we can do that at the end. I mean, I'm not sure what.
Sure. Just a reminder for our newer guests, Dr. Harry Nima Zegarra is presenting on passive versus active real estate investing, but please put questions in the chat and we'll discuss your questions once we're done with the presentation and have a little bit of Q&A.
All right, awesome. So moving on, why many people love real estate? Why are we so invested in real estate? Right, like in general, we have these 5 great benefits that real estate has that some other businesses or fields in investing they don't. Right, like so cash flow, appreciation, leverage, mortgage pay down or increase of equity, and tax advantages, which are great. So the cash flow, so what's the cash flow, right? Like the cash flow is what you keep from rent and from the fees after you pay all your expenses being mortgage, insurance, taxes, repairs, capex, and even reserves. Appreciation, we just mentioned, like there are some areas in the US where real estate appreciates more than in other areas, but in general, real estate continues to appreciate all the time or most of the time, right? Like, and in general, the appreciation in real estate has beaten the inflation most of the time or most years. Next, we have leverage, right? Like, so, and I always give this example about like how we leverage real estate and how we leverage money and people in real estate, right? Like, so, and the example comes to my mind about how we buy a home, right? Like if we want to buy an investment property, a $500,000 single family home, so we may need to put a 20% as a down payment, right? Like, so in that case, in order to buy an asset that is $500,000, we only need to put $100,000. However, the benefits that we get from there is from the $500,000 price, not from the $100,000 that we have put. Instead of when we buy stocks, for example, if we want to buy $1,000 in Apple stock, we need to put $1,000 in Apple stock, right? The other leverage is like with people, right? Like, so for example, like in when you hire a property manager or when you invest passively in real estate, you're leveraging others' people time and also expertise in this field, which is important. The next one is mortgage pay down or equity, right? Like like initially you don't feel that much, but after a couple of years, especially in residential real estate, when you continue paying your mortgage with your tenant or with the cash flow that you receive, at some point your mortgage is going to go down, and that means that your equity is going up, right? Like, and that plus the appreciation, that's what you get if you decide to sell that property. And finally, like the tax advantages, right? Like, so everyone talks about tax advantages in real estate, which are great. And that happens in residential, but also in commercial real estate, right? Like in residential, we all know like about like the depreciation, right? Which is basically a tax loss, right? Like, so which makes usually our cash flow, so we don't need to usually pay taxes on cash flow for the year initially, right? However, as I always mention, and just being totally honest and transparent, Uncle Sam and the IRS, they allow you to delay paying taxes, but they don't forget, right? Like, so that's something that you need to follow and treat correctly with your CPA in advance. Okay, so what is a syndication and how that works, right? So just syndication is a fancy word, right? Like actually, like when I was going into commercial real estate, I mean, initially, like it took me a couple of days to a week, like to decide to go in there because just the word is like scary, right? Like syndication, but it just mainly means group investment, right? Like as simple as that, right? Like, so a group of people with similar interests, they get together in order to buy a bigger asset, a big asset that otherwise they are not able to buy, right? As simple as that. And there are two groups of people, right? Like there are people who are like the passive investors who are mainly going to be participating and helping with capital, and also the active investors, right? Like that also they participate with capital. However, they put their time and expertise also in trying to get the property, to acquire the loan, to do the due diligence, to do the asset management, the day-to-day operations, and to do the disposition of this property after some time, usually 5 to 6 years. What can you syndicate? So usually you can syndicate anything, actually. I mean, like because of the definition, it just means like group of people getting together to buy something bigger. Can you syndicate a cell phone? Yes, you can do. Can you syndicate a football stadium? Yes, you can do. However, again, like, is it worth it to syndicate a cell phone or a computer or a TV? No, I mean, like because again, like there's many things that are involved in there, and many things that are actually expensive, right? And when we buy these apartment complexes, we use lawyers also. We do due diligence. We do an inspection of hundreds of units. Can somehow can you hear me well? I think I
Yeah, there was a
okay, perfect.
glitch, but we can hear you fine.
Okay, there was a glitch. Okay, yeah. So again, like that's it's very the process itself is very expensive. So again, like you need to pay even like a securities lawyer. You need to pay a commercial real estate like attorney to this, right? Like so that to keep in mind. And then like who leverages what or whom, right? Like so the passive investor is leveraging his or her money, is also leveraging the money from the bank or the lender, is also leveraging the time of the active investor, right? Like because of many of these active investors have been like in the business for many years, they have a lot of expertise and they're doing this full time. And the active investor, he's also benefiting from this, right? Like because he's also leveraging like the money of the bank, the lender, but also from the passive investors. So we all work together in order like to make this successful. The business model, right? Like so, as how lenders or how banks look at syndications or look at, in this case, what we bring to investors, apartment complexes, right? Like so, they look at these properties or multi-million-dollar properties as businesses. They usually don't look at them as real estate, right? Like so, how a property, a multi-million-dollar property is valued is based on the income this property makes at the end of the year. And that's what we try to look for when we are going out there and trying to buy these apartment complexes. We try to buy businesses that are necessarily well run and improve like the business model, right? Like and improve operations, right? Like increase income and decrease expenses. And with that, at the end of the year, the income is higher. With that, we're able like to get more cash flow and we were able to make distributions. But at the same time, like as mentioned before, like this business is for 5 or 6 years. So in year one, the income or the cash flow is going to be higher. The same for year 2, year 3, and year 4. And what happens in year 5 or 6? Because the income is way higher than at year 1 or when you buy the property, this property is going to be valued way more than the beginning. And that's when we decide probably like to sell the property or the asset, and we make the distributions there and the split. Now moving on, like as we mentioned before, and part of the reason we're doing these presentations, why not to invest in syndications or when not to, right? Like as passionate as we are about real estate, we understand that this is not for everyone, right? Like and this is not for everyone, but at the same time, it's not the timing may not be the best for everyone, like in different situations in life, right? Like so, one of the reasons when you should not invest in syndications or at least consider not to is because this is a lot of money, right? Like you need to invest a lot of money. So most syndications or syndicators, the entry level is around 50 or 75,000. Actually, there are some of them who the entry level is $100,000 or $200,000. There are some of them who are less than that, but those are the exceptions or like the new syndicators in the business. Right. Like, so I always also mention that again, like this is a lot of money, and even for physicians is a lot of money. So you need to think about that. I was just recently talking with an investor. We have a project going on in this moment, and she was telling me, hey, I mean, I can get like a HELOC on my house, like to get some extra money to invest. I said, like, please don't do that. Right. Like, so you need to invest with the money that you have extra to put away, like, right. Like for some time, don't get in trouble in order to invest. and always to have reserves, right? Like, so, because like life happens, right? Like, I mean, like we don't know if in 1 year or two we may need like to buy a car. If we God forbid, we may need like to go to the hospital or have like medical expenses of our, or our kids may go in graduation, or may need to go to college. So you need to think about that, right? Like alternatives for syndications are REITs and crowdfunding sites, right? Like the level entry is way less than syndications. Like so REITs is basically like stocks in real estate, real estate investment trusts, right? Like where you can buy those at very, very low level, like $100 or less in crowdfunding sites. The entry level is even like $500, 1,000, things like that, right? But again, like you need to understand the business model, and you need to understand like the returns when you're going into. Another reason why not to invest in syndications, or at least to consider like to delay investing in syndications, or to have this in mind, is that this is an illiquid investment, right? Like, so when you invest in real estate, and this is something very important I talk with all my investors, is that think about that your money or your capital is going to be there in the project for the life of the investment, right? Like, and usually these projects we analyze, and we have like the business plan for 5 to 6 years. I mean, of course, we have heard like stories in the last 5 years, which were like the golden years of real estate, that many syndications, the full cycle was in 2 years and 3 years, and everyone was great and excited about that. But it's not the case. Well, first, like anymore, like because we want to be conservative, right? Like, and because of our economic situation too. Then we need to compare about syndications versus stocks and REITs, right? Like any, like in case of stocks and REITs, they're very liquid, right? Like, so you can sell your stocks or REITs and get your money back in a couple of days. That's not the case for syndications. And even though there are some clauses where we may be able to make exceptions because of the fees, because of the time and work invested in that, is usually not beneficial either for the active or the passive investor. Again, as I mentioned before, have reserves. Have reserves is very important, because we don't know what's going to happen with us, with our family, or even with the economy in the next couple of years. How about funds, right? Like, so I have also heard about like, so real estate funds, and in general, they're funds for debt, and they're funds for equity in the projects, right? Like, and they're funds also what we call open funds and closed funds. So the closed funds are kind of similar as syndications, right? Like when you put your money, and your money needs to be there for the life of the investment, which again, like as we're talking about apartment complexes, in many of these situations is at least 4 to 5 to 6 years. In case of open funds, it may be more liquid. However, again, like there's a process for that, right? Like, so it's not going to be like just a couple of days. It takes a couple of weeks at least. You need to learn a new process and trust the team, right? Like for many of us, and even for my wife, Mitzi, and I, investing in syndications 3 years ago, we have never heard about that before. So it was like a new process, a new thing. Like, so I always tell this to people: education, education, education. And we have gone through education for so long in our lives, like in college, medical school, residency, fellowship, extra fellowship. So we know about that, right? Like, but we mainly do this in medicine. But however, we don't do this in other financial aspects which are very important. There are a lot of new terms that we need to learn, and definitions, right? Like from even like splits, preferred return, refinance, equity multiple, IRR. So there are many different things that we need to learn before we start investing in syndications. The next part is, do I trust this team, right? Like, and this is important to mention, because as great as numbers look, and we have seen this before, the most important part for this kind of investment is the team who is managing that, and what kind of communication he or she has with the investors. right? Like, and all of this is work up front, right? Like as much as we want to call it passive investment, it's not necessarily passive at the beginning. It's passive after you have done your due diligence. It's passive after you have done your education, right? It's passive after you have sent your capital for the investment. After that, it's passive. But before that, it takes some time, it takes some work, it takes education. And finally, passive also means no control, right? Like, and this may be good or may be bad for some people, right? Like, so you need to think about you don't no decision making capacity on the day to day, right? Like, and as I just mentioned, right? This may be good or bad for some people, right? So you're not going to be being called for problems in day to day operations, right? But at the same time, going to the second point, how about the renovations or capital events, right? Like when we decide to do a refinance on a property, or when we decide to sell a property, also you don't have control. And again, like to some degree, you prefer that because you want a team of experts, of people who have been doing this for many years, who are doing this as a full-time job to take these decisions for you. Next point is, could you do it yourself? It's very unlikely. It's very unlikely because, like, even I've known like several teams, several active investors. There's just so much going on around a syndication that is very difficult for just only one person, almost impossible for only one person to do it, him or herself. So that's why we need like a team of people, right? Like we have different backgrounds, different expertise, and things that we do, that we are able like to put them together and make this investment successful, right? Like, and you need to take a decision. You need to determine if this will be an issue for you, being passive and not being able like to take decisions on this investment. Like, for example, I have my single family houses still, and I take like the decisions on them, and I want to take the decisions on them. But at the same time, when I invest passively in bigger assets, I understand why I'm not taking the decisions, right? Like, so some of doctors were more type A, right? Like in personality, and we want to be involved all the time. It may be not the right investment for you. All right, I think that's most what I have for now, Daniel.
Wonderful.
And this is
Thank
like
you. Thank you, Harry, for that wonderful sort of discussion about passive versus active real estate investing. Again, for everyone who came in, this is Dr. Harry Nima Zegarra, co-founder and manager of Nima Equity, also a pulmonary and critical care medicine physician. I'm not Jordan Fry. I'm Daniel Shin. I'm a urologic surgeon. I blog at the Dorinian Doctor. I'm pinch hitting, filling in because unfortunately Jordan had a last minute commitment. But thank you for joining us. We do have some questions that I was hoping that we could get to. Are we ready for that, Dr. Zegarra?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Why don't we, if you don't mind, we'll stop sharing at this point, unless there was some contact information that you want.
No, I mean, that was just my shameless plug, like the website, Nima Equity, and also about just wanted to share about like our educational channel, right? Like we have a YouTube channel where we share like information about investing in real estate and especially like syndications, right? Like everyone is welcome to subscribe or watch the videos. And with that, I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So why don't we go to a, can't change that. Okay, so, as I am talking about your question, feel free to come on video if you want to add any additional details to your question. But first one here is from Jason Paniker, who says, is asking about tax benefits. Do real estate syndications share similar tax benefits to other types of passive real estate investing?
Yes, absolutely, Jason. By definition, real estate syndications are passive real estate investing. So they share all these tax benefits, including depreciation, cost segregation, and bonus depreciation.
Yeah, that was something that was illuminating to me, because one of the great things about active real estate investing is that it's in a lot of ways, the income from it can be tax-free because you use depreciation to offset the income from that. It's a great tax benefit. I was surprised to learn that you can use the same techniques with syndications. It's just kind of on a larger scale, and you just divide it up amongst the investors. Is that correct?
Exactly. And that's also like because of how the contract is set up, right? Like when you see the contracts or the PPM, the private placement memorandum for this indication, or the contract that everyone signs, right? Like to participate, we all are co-owners, we all are co-partners. It's just like the difference level of responsibilities and liabilities, right? Like in case of the passive investor, like again, like he or she doesn't have any liability or responsibility on the management of this investment.
Excellent. Okay, and next question was, where do you find deals to buy?
Yes, so I'm part of a bigger group. Like, so as everyone can understand, I'm still like a full-time physician. I have like the single family houses that we still manage with my wife, and we have 2 kids, so we have a very active life. And on top of that, we do real estate syndications, and we founded this company about 2 years ago, right? Like, so I leverage again like others people's time and expertise, right? Like, so I'm part of a mastermind or other like investment groups where there are people who have been in syndications or investing in real estate for many years with many cycles of expertise, right? Like, so like with some of these groups, I know them already for about like 2 years again, and we have gone like into projects before. So yeah, so that's one of the things that we love about commercial real estate, like again, which is a group investment, and you do a lot of network and you meet new people all the time. Yes.
Excellent. So next question is, what is the best way to transition from an LP limited partner to a GP general partner? Is there a route to do that?
Absolutely. And even though we are active investors and we love investors too, part of our mission is also to educate other people, right? Like, and when I talk with people and when I talk with investors, like I made them hear like the questions about like, hey, I want to start like in single family homes first, and I try to help with that. And also like if someone is interested in becoming like a GP, there's also a way to do that, right? Like, so because like my wife and I did that. So like the first part, like, which is very important, that I put that actually on the presentation, is education, right? Like because when you're doing real estate, it's not like a small amount of money, right? Like it's a lot of money, right? Like, and when you're doing single family house, it's your money, it's your capital. However, when you're doing commercial real estate, it's not just only your money, it's like the money of your investors, right? Like it's the money or the capital of people who trust in you, right? Like, so you need to have a lot of education. And one of the things when we were starting initially in syndications, is someone told me, when you want to do syndications as a full-time professional, you need to have one of these 3 things, right? So either a lot of time, or you need to have a good network of active real estate investors, or you need to have some capital to invest in yourself and to get education. I didn't have that much time. I didn't have a network. So I have some capital, and that's why I joined a mastermind group initially, and like a mentorship group initially, so of non-doctor real estate investors. And with that, we grew together, right? Like, so I was able like to get hands-on and do all these projects with them.
Excellent. All right, next question. So from Florian, the question is regarding using retirement funds essentially to invest in real estate, either with a EQRP or self-directed IRA. And any thoughts on that, or would you recommend that, given that syndications are already sort of tax protected? Would you recommend using IRA funds to invest?
Yes.
Florian,
Like,
you're muted. If you had
I'll ask you. So I didn't realize the tax implications until I had done it. And now that I've done it, I'm trying to get away, and that's why the EQRP kind of came into my radar. And I'm just trying to find out, anybody have any experience with that company, and is it legitimate, and so on. So I just didn't know.
yes.
So I'm trying.
Yes, very good. So there's other ways to invest with retirement funds, as you're mentioning. I don't have much experience with EQRP, but I know that there's another way to do it. The most important part of the retirement fund is like it needs to be self-managed, right? Like it needs to be a solo 401k, a self-directed IRA, or an EQRP. And actually, a good percentage of the people who invest in syndications do that through retirement funds.
So, and I'm not an expert also in this, but I understand that as long as the investment is kept within the IRA, it doesn't bleed out into your personal accounts, it can remain tax protected. So I would definitely talk to a CPA about the aspects of that, Florian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just I'm subject to the UBIT tax, which I didn't know about. So I'm learning all this. And I created a tax event out of a tax sheltered, area. So big whoops.
Yeah, no, and that's like an important concept, right? Like the IRA, by definition, is a tax deferred vehicle, right? Like, so you usually don't pay taxes on the cash flow, but there's this tax called like the UBIT tax that you pay based on the appreciation gain based on the amount that was financed, right? Like if you take that into consideration, there are a couple of good calculators out there. But again, like, yeah, I mean, it's good to have a good plan in you with your CPA, and that's important.
Thank you. So Lewis is asking if your newsletter provides learning videos or learning educational content. Can you either flash or I'll put your, actually, I will put your website into the messages in the chat so people are able to access that. But that's the question.
Yeah, no, again, like I mean, we're very grateful, like, because in our way in these last 5 years, we were helped so many people so openly share the information with all of us and education that so this, of course, we're doing this because we love real estate, and we see this as a way for or a path for wealth. But also at the same time, like, again, like I mentioned before, we want to educate other people. We want to share this information with other people, right? Like, so we have like our website. We have in our website like the blogs where we talk about like terms or definitions or concepts about mainly syndications, but also real estate in general. And also we have our YouTube channel where we share almost every week some videos about this.
Excellent. All right. And Julia Myers asks, can you explain the process once you're in a syndication and there's a capital call? What is a capital call and when does that take place?
Yes. So that's something that nobody wants, but there's have been some occasion where that happens, right? Like, so a capital call happens when, for example, you have your business plan, right? Like, and something goes wrong and you don't have enough cash flow or money to pay your expenses, right? Like in this case, for example, like to pay like the mortgage or to pay like the property management company or the contractors who go. In this case, like first, like the most important thing that I believe is a good communication like between like the syndicator and the investors, right? Like because as I mentioned before, so this is an investment, right? Like, so this is not that I'm going like to the bank and I get like a fixed rate like on my investment and I'm going to get that for sure every year, right? Like, and again, like in these investments, the returns can be higher, the returns can be as expected or can be lower. Or there's some like also sometimes that despite like making like the best effort, things go wrong, right? Like, so in these cases, in some occasions, I've heard like that in some groups they needed like to do capital calls, right? Like, so so that's when the general partners or the active investors go to their investors and request or ask for extra capital in order like to get like the business going, right? Important to mention is also like I've talked with some people who were under this situation, and like, and believe me, So this is like the last thing that a syndicator wants to do. So like before doing a capital call, like the team tries different things, right? Like so they go like to the lender and try to do a refinance, or they talk with the broker and they see how is like the market out there and if they would like to sell the property before doing anything. For example, if there's some cash flow, they will try like to continue on the business plan. And even like before calling the passive investors for capital, in many occasions the active investors are the ones who put their own extra capital in order like to keep like the business going.
Perfect. All right. And Sherwin Shrug has a question here. He recently invested in a syndication and the capital account went beyond zero into negative territory. How does this happen? Is this bonus depreciation related?
I don't understand what he means by capital account, right? Like so, but again, like if he means like the K1, right? Like so, it's like the tax document that we get every year, right? Like usually like in March, April, right? Like so, usually everyone who invests in a syndication passively is going to get this tax document every year, and it's usually going to show a negative value, right? Like, and it's like because of the depreciation. Exactly, right? Like, and even without bonus depreciation, it's going to be negative, right? Like because initially, like the cash flow is around like 5 to 8%, right? Like, so it's not enough like to beat the regular depreciation of a property. Like the cost segregation and the bonus the depreciation is something that helps actually investors who have been investing in syndications for many, many years, or who have like a lot of wealth and they're investing millions of dollars. In that case, that helps.
And I want to highlight that this is one of the really interesting ways that real estate is so tax beneficial, because even though you're putting money into the investment, you're increasing the value of the asset by renovating, by doing all these things. You can show this substantial paper loss. And in some cases, that can even be sort of, if you're an active investor and a real estate professional, that can be deducted against your overall income, which is one of the ways that some physicians can shelter some of their substantial income. So real estate has a lot of benefits like that. Okay, a tool says there are so many syndication options that have a record of excellent returns over the last 10 years. How do you decide who to invest with? How do you vet these options when they all seem to have done so well?
Yes, yes. And as I was mentioning like before, right? Like it's not fair. Like in the last 5 or 10 years, we call like the golden age of real estate or the golden age of stocks, right? Because everything was going up, right? Like so you could even be not the best indicator or the best asset management on these properties, and still like the property was going up. Like actually like we just had an acquisition a couple of months ago, like of a property here in Dallas Fort Worth, that was acquired half a year like before the pandemic, right? And because of the pandemic, they were not able like to do many renovations or things like that. But the lender was asking just simply that keep like the vacancy low. So they were not doing many renovations and they were not increasing the rents. But just because of the inflation and how the market was pushing everything up, they were able like to sell like the property in just 3 years or so, like with good returns on investment, right? Like so, like again, like it's very difficult to find out there like good operators, and I believe like in general we believe like in the next couple of years we're gonna see who are the really good operators out there, right? Like and again and to have a good full-time asset manager who just does real estate as a full-time activity, right? Like so that's that's very important. So for me it's very important, like again, like to get like the track record to talk with other investors who have invested with that syndicator, right? Like to get like the experience, not necessarily just on the returns, but also on the communications, right? Like how fluid like the communication is, right? Like, and also if bad things happen in the past, as I mentioned, life happens. How was like the actions that they took, like when that happened? How was the communication, and what they did after that to prevent that to happen again, right? So it's important, and that's something that we all should do like before investing, right?
Excellent. Okay. So Julia has a question, and I think we have time for probably another one or two questions, and then we'll probably wrap up. But Julia's asking, and if I'm misstating this, please come on to correct me, but what % of your investment is a good rule of thumb to expect back on your K1 each year? You say due to depreciation, so I'm not exactly sure if you're talking about tax protection, or I'm not sure if you're talking about a return on investment. So feel free to come on and clarify, or Harry, if you just want to discuss it a little.
Yeah, I didn't completely understand that part. Yes.
Yeah, here you go.
Yes.
Just connecting the dots for me when it comes to bonus depreciation and getting a K1 each year that shows a loss. Is there any sort of a formula connecting that dollar loss to your capital contribution? So like, should you expect, so in your tax planning, you don't know what your K1 is going to be in those years. Say you're active. I do short-term rentals as well. And I'm wondering, what should I expect, if any, back as a negative from K1?
Yes, yes, absolutely, Julie. As a rule of thumb, like you should expect have a negative K1 in the first 4 years of the investment, right? Like, so as we're mentioning, like all the cash flow that you like are gonna like receive in the first couple of years, year 1 to 4, or a little bit like before we set the asset, your tax document or K1 is gonna show a loss. And just like because like again, like we do like the bonus depreciation and the cost segregation on each property, right? However, again, as I mentioned, and being totally transparent about this, Uncle Sam or the IRS allows to delay taxes, but they don't forget about taxes, right? Like, and so that's why it's so important to have a good CPA and good planning for year 5 or year 6 when the property is sold, and you may be facing depreciation or recapture of the capital gains, right? Like in that moment, you need to plan ahead and like and see if you're going to roll that investment to another syndication, or if you're going to buy an investment property by yourself, like a single family home for a long-term rental or a short-term rental, or if you're going to just take the taxes that is still is less than what we get on taxes in our W-2 usually.
That's a great answer. And I do want to add a little flavor, Julia, that the short-term rental loophole that allows physicians and others to deduct losses against your active income, that's a loophole. Unless you are spending the majority of your time in real estate and are a real estate professional, investing in this syndication is by definition a passive real estate activity. So you won't be able to deduct those losses against your active income. And just one thing that I have heard from other syndicators is that at year 5, if you do get that sudden influx of cash, be it via a refinance or a sale of the asset, you could just invest into another syndication and try to get that big loss in year 1 to kind of offset that. So it's all about good tax planning.
Yeah, like as mentioned like before, the beauty of real estate is not in just to invest for 1 or 2 years, is to invest for a long term, for many, many years.
Excellent. And I think this last question is a perfect way to end. Dr. Zegarra, do you have currently a call, an opportunity for investment? And how do you invest? Can you invest via an LLC for asset protection, or do you just invest sort of dollars out of your checking account? How does it work?
Yes. So the answer is yes. Yeah, we have a current investment opportunity at this moment. We're not able to share openly, because it's a 506B investment opportunity. So it must be with something or with someone that I have talked before, on the phone, or we have met before, and I know that he or she understands what kind of investment is this and the risks and all the things associated with that, right? So, and for the question about how you invest, people invest in many different ways, right? They invest as a regular person, they invest with LLCs, and they invest with retirement funds, right? And I have had this question, and I have also asked this question to many syndicators that have been there for many, many years in terms of the liability, right? Because of many people is concerned about that, and that's why they want to invest through an LLC. being a passive investor, you have zero liability on this, right? Like, so like the liability goes on the active investors, right? But still, if you want to feel comfortable in order, and also in order like to put your investments in a different, in more orderly fashion, yeah, you can do that with an LLC too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this illuminating presentation by Dr. Harry Nima Zegarra. I've posted his Nima Equity website in the chat again. And again, I'm Daniel Shin, the Darwinian doctor, filling in for Jordan Fry. This is a QR code to my website here. I would love it if you would all check it out as well. An active real estate investor. And thank you very much for joining us. We'll stay on just for a few more minutes so you can take down that information. But thank you very much. We'll end it here.
Thank you so much, everyone.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Florian.
All right. That's going to conclude it there. So I'm going to end the presentation. Everyone have a great night.